Arriving this February, Ant-Man The Wasp Quantumania is the third installment of Peyton Reed's Ant-Man trilogy. The film will see Scott Lang on a journey to the quantum realm for his daughter Cassie and lover Hope, as a new villain steps up to the plate in the form of Kang the Conqueror. Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, Michael Douglas, and Michelle Pfeiffer are all set to return for this installment, as Scott, Hope, Hank Pym, and Janet Van Dyne respectively. Jonathan Majors, who played the role of He Who Remains in Loki, is returning as Kang the Conqueror, and that's not by accident. Having been excellently portrayed in previous MCU movies by actresses Abby Ryder-Fortson and Emma Furman, the role of Cassie Lang will be played by Catherine Newton in this film, and all indication points to Cassie finally becoming the superhero stature in this film. Classic Marvel villain MODOK is going to be in this as well. He's basically a big-headed villain floating around in a chair, a goofier Marvel villain no doubt, so he will fit in perfectly in the Ant-Man series.
I'm Ant-Man.
Ant-Man? What, you haven't heard of me? No, you wouldn't have heard of me.
As for the whole quantum aspect of things, it stands to reason that we will learn more about the quantum realm in this one, as well as seeing how it was so instrumental to the Avengers being able to undo the work of Thanos. It also wouldn't surprise me if either Kang or MODOK or both of them have a justified gripe with Hank Pym somehow, since much like Howard and Tony Stark, Hank has a tendency to create his own antagonists, which, given how director Peyton Reed and actor Michael Douglas have chosen to portray the character, is a far less extreme way to show that Hank is a flawed hero.
All those years ago, you picked me. What did you say?
I saw myself.
Why did you push me away?
Because I saw too much of myself.
Back in the day, I was Hank's partner on a project called Goliath.
Excuse me, you were my partner?
The only thing more tiring than going that big is putting up with Hank's bullshit. That's why I left the project.
Left. I fired you.
Best decision I ever made. Hank was a terrible partner. Temperamental, stubborn, impatient. Sooner or later, he just pushed everyone away.
Just the mediocrities.
Janet was the only one who could endure him and chose to stick it out.
Watch it, Bill.
I doubt Hank has ever mentioned my father, Elias Starr. They were colleagues at S.H.I.E.L.D., quantum research, until my father dared disagree with the great Hank Pym, who had him fired. Oh, and discredited for good measure.
We also have yet to see what extent Janet has been affected by prolonged exposure to the quantum realm, so it will be interesting to see how much greater context will be given to what her new abilities are. And from what's been shown in the trailers, we will be getting more Michelle Pfeiffer in this one, and that's awesome. For my money though, the most tragic story in the MCU that has flown under the radar for viewers is the relationship between Scott and his daughter Cassie. For as much as Paul Rudd and Ant-Man is associated with the more lighthearted side of the MCU, Scott's running timeline with his daughter is actually a pretty sad one, and in its own way is representative of the concept of a hero's sacrifice. When we first met Scott, he's finishing a prison sentence which he incurred for stealing the money his former employer stole and giving it back to the people who it was stolen from.
They were overcharging the customers, right? And it added up to millions. He blows the whistle and he gets fired. And what does he do? He hacks into the security system and transfers millions back to the people that they stole it from.
Posts all the bank records online.
And he drove dude's Bentley into his swimming pool.
During the time of his sentence, his wife divorced him.
When I first met Scotty, he was in a bad place. And I'm not talking about Cell Block D. His wife had just filed for divorce. And I was like, damn, homie, she dumped you when you on lockup? And he was like, yeah, I know, I thought I was gonna be with her forever. But now I'm all alone. And I was like, damn, homie, you know what? You gotta chin up, because you'll find a new partner. But you know what? I'm Luis. And he says, you know what? I'm Scotty, and we're gonna be best friends.
Okay,
And he missed 3 years of his daughter's childhood. Upon release, the one thing he desires more than any other is time with his daughter, which he immediately is told he won't get until he pays child support, and given his status as a felon, he is limited in occupational choices that will allow him to make these payments in a manner that will allow him to see his daughter anytime soon. Initially deciding to risk it all to get the money, he turns back to crime but ends up being ensnared by Hank Pym into becoming the Ant-Man. In the final act of the film, in order to save his daughter, Scott makes a decision that potentially will leave him lost forever.
I love you, Cassie.
you so much.
I love you too. So much.
With things seemingly beginning to turn around for him, he gets a call from an Avenger to help out his favorite hero. And despite it putting him back in trouble if things go wrong, Scott sticks his neck out for Steve Rogers.
We're outside the law on this one. So if you come with us, you're a wanted man.
Yeah, well, what else is new?
As luck would have it, things do go wrong and Scott is put under house arrest. Another limitation to the experiences he can have with his daughter. By the film's ending, Scott is again unlucky as during a mission to help Ava Starr, Thanos snaps away his ticket out of the quantum realm and ends up being stuck there for 5 years. Upon his return, he realizes, amongst other things, that his daughter is much older than the last time we saw her, resulting in what is truly one of the best scenes in the finale of the Infinity Saga.
You're so big.
The one thing he wanted when he was at his lowest was time with his daughter. And for one reason or another, mistakes, heroic sacrifice, or just plain rotten luck, Scott hasn't been able to have the time with his daughter that he so desperately has wanted. With this being the third chapter in a series that's so heavily focused on paternal and maternal relationships, I look forward to seeing how this thread continues to evolve in this film. With Kang the Conqueror as the villain in this, it will be interesting to see how they approach a story with the overarching villain of the entire next saga of movies goes up against an underdog of an Avenger like Ant-Man.
Yeah, if you leave, Ant-Man.